Imagine a city so clean, efficient, and futuristic that you'll feel like you've stepped into a sci-fi movie. Public transport runs like clockwork, crime is almost non-existent, and the streets are spotless.
Sounds perfect, right? The city seems flawless, but it may be hiding a dark side.
You may have already guessed that we're talking about Singapore. It's an island country just south of Malaysia. It has a nice airport and an international hub. It's a city-state, so it's pretty small by land area, but it does have around 6 million people.
Singapore uses the Singapore dollar, and currently the exchange rate is $1 to 1.35 SGD or Singapore dollar. To do the conversion, you need to subtract 25% to get to USD.
Now let's talk about the things we liked before we dive into the dark side of Singapore.
But first, hit that subscribe button if you are dreaming of moving abroad, because it might be easier than you think and we can show you how to do it.
Okay, what's the first thing you noticed about Singapore, Amelia?
The city is ultra modern. It feels like the city of tomorrow. I felt like we were transported into one of those futuristic sci-fi movies where everything is so perfect and orderly with the new modern buildings and beautiful parks, and everyone looks really nice and it's just high functioning.
It feels very utopian. It is super clean. There's no trash anywhere, no cigarette butts, no gum on the sidewalks. The air quality is good. We had no breathing problems. Unlike our time in Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, there was no haze hanging over the city. It's also super safe. The travel advisory is a level 1 from the US State Department, and it's a level 5 on the Global Peace Index, which puts it between New Zealand at 4 and Switzerland at 6.
I loved all of the parks. There were so many green parks. It's known as the Green City, and I know why, because we walked through parks galore. The big botanical gardens was absolutely beautiful. It actually reminded us a lot of our time in London. And then of course you have the famous gardens by the Bay parks, but you get to enjoy nature everywhere you go in the city.
I loved the beautiful architecture. I felt like a lot of the buildings looked like little jungles, little mini jungles or vertical gardens, because they were designed to have trees and flowing bushes and vines and everything. It's just like the nature was built into the building architecture. It's hard to wrap your head around what these buildings look like. You really have to see them for yourself. The video just doesn't do it justice.
We went out at night a lot because it is hot there during the day, and I was really surprised that you could see stars there. It wasn't actually as well lit as some other cities, meaning that that's actually a good thing. They didn't have as much light pollution, but at times it was a bit unnerving because we were walking around all by ourselves, nobody else around, and it was kind of dark, but we always felt very safe.
And it is very quiet, kind of unnervingly quiet, I would say. There's not a lot of traffic noise or loud music blaring. When we were walking around by ourselves at night, it was so quiet that it felt like we had the whole place to ourselves. I'm not exactly sure why there were so few people out when we were walking around like that, but it was weird.
It was very easy to walk everywhere, day or night. It was never too crowded. The sidewalks are nice and flat, and there are plenty of crossings for pedestrians. You do not want to jaywalk there, but you don't need to because it's really easy to cross the street. Plus, you can go underneath and go underground. One of the really cool things about the city is all the underground tunnels, and there's a whole nother world underground that you can use just for transportation reasons or to escape the heat entirely.
There's entire malls down there, and you can just go shopping underground all day if you want. There was one park that had a mall underneath the whole thing. It was what, the Marina Square?
I think so.
Yeah, it was crazy. The MRT lines also have their underground walkways in between terminals and stuff, and some of them are really long. We got on one after we went out walking around the garden by the bay at night, and we went down into this MRT station and there was nobody in there, and it felt a little eerie because we thought the train would be right there. We ended up walking about 10 minutes underground through empty tunnels that were super nice, like an airport, only with no people in them, all by ourselves. Amelia said she felt like it was like being in Walking Dead.
I did think that. I thought, oh my gosh, if we see any blood on the walls, we have to run. Of course, it was nothing like that, but that was what my thought was. It was like too perfect. But it was weird to be in this major city and not have anybody else around in a major metro and a public train station. Of course, once we got to the main train area, there were other people, so we were just fine.
And speaking of the train, the public transportation system is incredible. I think it may be the best that we've seen anywhere we've been to. It's kind of a spider network that goes under the city, and then there is a loop that goes all the way around the outside. So you can get a train stop almost anywhere within a few blocks of where you are, which makes it super easy to get around. And the tickets were very affordable. We're talking like $1 or $2 for a ride. We only spent, I think, $20 the whole time we were there on the MRT, and we rode it almost every day.
They also have a really good bus system. They have those double-decker buses, which are very affordable, and they are air conditioned, which is a big plus because you got to have the air conditioning there.
And Grab is also available. Again, Grab's like Uber. It's a rideshare platform, and it was surprisingly affordable given how expensive it is to own a car there. It was about half of what we were paying in the US for an Uber ride.
There are hardly any motorcycles compared to all the other places we've been in Southeast Asia, which is a motorcycle mecca.
Another nice thing as English speakers is that English is the official language of the country, so everything is in English and everybody spoke English fluently, and all the signs are in English.
Yes, that made it extremely easy for us. There's also a lot of diverse neighborhoods, so you have a lot of different options as far as where to stay or to live if you decide to relocate to Singapore.
Of course, we went to Little India for our Indian fix while we were there, and it actually felt like India. It was the most crowded part of Singapore, at least that we experienced, and we went a lot of different places. It felt a lot like we were in India while we were there.
Yeah, I really liked seeing all the open markets again so that you could go there and buy your fresh produce. But you don't have to just go to Little India for produce. You can get everything you need in Singapore. There are great grocery stores. I mean, it is shopping galore. There's a wide variety of shopping, and if you're really into luxury goods, geez Louise, that is the place to go because there were luxury stores on every corner and multiple of the same type of store.
Yeah, if you don't want to walk across the street to buy your Patek Philippe watch for $50,000, you can just stay like right where you are because there'll be one on your side of the street too. That was the thing that shocked me, I think, the most about Singapore is that they would have like a Rolex, a Tiffany's, and a Cartier on each corner like it was a Starbucks. I asked Amelia, who in the world is buying all this stuff that they need to have multiple places so you don't even have to cross the street to buy that stuff if you don't want to?
The food was fantastic. Since we did stay in a hotel, we ate out all the time, and there's a really nice variety of food choices there. We actually ate outside quite a bit because once we were outside of the sun, it was quite a bit more comfortable.
And you can drink the water, the tap water, which was nice, so we didn't have to rely on those bottles of water all the time. And one thing we noticed though is that the people tend to be a little bit more reserved. They're still nice and friendly, but just not quite as smiley as we've seen in some of the other places, especially Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Now let's talk about the dark side of Singapore and everything that you must know before you go so that you avoid any unpleasant experiences.
Starting with, it is hot and humid. We do get questions about this, and let me tell you, I was quite hot a lot. Well, basically the whole time we were there. Even at nighttime, it was warm. The good news is that it was very breezy when we were there, so that really did help make it more manageable. But there were a few times we were out during the day where I just felt really exhausted after a couple hours of being outside in that heat.
It is on the sea. It's a city on the sea, so you get those nice sea breezes coming in. That does help a little bit, and that's why we were able to sit outdoors at some restaurants. They usually have big fans circulating the air as well, and with that breeze blowing through, when you're sitting in the shade, it's nice. But as soon as you step into the sun, it is at least 10 degrees warmer.
And no surprise here, it is expensive. I think the whole world knows Singapore is expensive. It actually wasn't as horrible as I had myself prepared for. Housing and lodging is pricey, but I feel like the eating out, the restaurants were pretty similar to what we spent in the US.
Last year it was voted the most expensive city in the world, and I think that's based on living there, not necessarily visiting there, because if you do live there, there are some additional costs that you're not going to have in other cities. Like car ownership is very expensive. expensive. It's about $100,000 to get a certificate of entitlement permit that allows you to own a car, which is one reason why there's hardly any traffic on the streets, because it's not really attainable for a lot of the population.
Interestingly enough, there were plenty of grabs. We never had to wait very long to get a grab at all. So I feel like the city must have some sort of plan in place for taxis and grab drivers.
Singapore is a city where rules rule, and they have a lot of them. Number one is no gum. You're not even supposed to bring it into the country or sell it or chew it. We thought that was kind of weird when we got there until we came to Kuala Lumpur, where we are now, and I stepped in gum twice. Right after we got here, we unloaded, walked to the grocery store 2 times. I stepped in gum, and I thought, man, I really appreciate that Singapore law now.
You have to clean up after yourself in public places or you will get fined. This means taking your tray and putting it away and flushing the toilet. If you do not flush the toilet in a public restroom, you can get fined for that.
You'll also get fined for eating or drinking anything on public transportation. There were signs up with how much the fine is going to cost you if you break that rule.
There are fines for smoking in public, although there are some designated places where you are allowed to smoke. Smoking was not common there at all, and the nice thing is we did not see cigarette butts all over the place like we have in other cities.
Jaywalking is illegal like it is in most places. However, a lot of the countries we've been to in Southeast Asia and even in Europe, sometimes you have to jaywalk because the parking is such that the crosswalks are all blocked. So you just have to go wherever you can find an opening. And a lot of places don't even have crosswalks. So you're just walking down the middle of the street. That is not a thing in Singapore. You better follow those rules and go to the crosswalk, which is nice because they're on every corner and they have nice crossing lights and stripes and people stop for you. So it's not a big issue, but make sure you follow that rule too.
Another interesting rule you should be aware of is that you cannot walk around completely naked in your place if people can see you. So you cannot be walking around with with no towel on if you got out of the shower and your curtains open, or you could get fined or even arrested.
Yeah, I think that's funny. Like, I guess maybe you can get arrested if you're looking into as a peeping Tom. But the fact that you get arrested in your own home for walking around naked, just be warned, you don't want to do that.
That is an interesting rule.
Okay, Amelia, are you ready to move to Singapore? Are you ready to trade some of those freedoms for the level of perfection that we saw there?
You know, I know a lot of people don't like all the rules. The rules really didn't bother me, although I did not read all of the rules of Singapore. But once again, I'm going to say my biggest issue is that it was too hot for me. And it is a little bit out of our price range, well, maybe more than a little bit.
Yes,
it's pretty pricey.
It is pretty pricey. It reminded me of the Demolition Man, that movie from the 90s with Sylvester Stallone. And at the end of the movie, he said,
"Why don't you get a little dirty? You like clean. And somewhere in the middle, I don't know, you'll figure it out."
That's kind of what it reminded me of, like this perfect futuristic utopian sci-fi vision of what a city should look like in the future. And I don't know, I kind of liked it. It didn't feel like they needed to get dirty to me. I appreciate the cleanness and the perfection, and I'm fine giving up gum since I don't chew it anyway, if that's what it takes to have that level of perfection.
Yeah, the gum was a no-brainer. So what do you all think about Singapore as a place to visit or live? Are you interested? Let us know in the comments.
And remember to check out our Move Abroad Express e-course by clicking this link over here.
If you're interested in a less polished, more accessible and affordable version of Singapore, then check out these videos next.
All right, guys, that's all we have. Before we go, please leave us a like, and thank you so much for watching.
See y'all next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.